Hello everyone, my name is Mark Valdez, and today I'm speaking on Streamline Moderne and Surrealism in the last two seasons of Better Call Saul. My interest in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul has been with the filming locations, but also in the symbolism present in the backgrounds of the two television shows, particularly in the architecture. Streamline Moderne and Surrealism are the twin pillars of the visual artistic expression of both Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Both traditions originate in the late 1920s. Streamline Moderne is the last stage of Art Deco and celebrates industrial design as applied to buildings, transport, and commercial products. Glass block windows are a hallmark of the Streamline Moderne style, and you can recognize the style through the aerodynamic and nautical streamlining of buildings, the presence of nautical elements like railings and portholes, the rounded corners, and the use of pastel colors. Surrealism, on the other hand, couldn't be any more different. Surrealism seeks to release the creative potential of the unconscious mind as expressed through dreams and the irrational juxtaposition of images, and follows the psychoanalysis of Sigmund Freud. There are a lot of continuities between the last two seasons of Better Call Saul and previous seasons, and also with Breaking Bad. For example, in the use of grids. Here we have two examples from season 6. On the left we have Francesca's apartments, the apartments that she manages. The facade of the building is covered in an incised grid. On the right we have a different grid, applique blocks on the facade of Palm Coast Sprinkler. These blocks were not on the original facade but were installed by the Better Call Saul crew. Another continuity is in the use of twin ceilings, which mean imminent punishment. This is the Copper Lounge where Gene meets a man with cancer, and when we see the tin ceiling, we know that Gene is about to be punished. Another continuity is in the use of simplified mandala symbols, and I have a symbol here in the upper right-hand corner, a circle within a square. The most important simplified mandala symbol in Breaking Bad had been the unsliced pizza within its box. It was important that the pizza be unsliced so as not to fracture the symbol. In the episode Waterworks, we see two examples of simplified mandalas. The light at the top of the phone booth, from which Gene calls Francesca and Kim, is a simplified mandala symbol, as is the life alert button that Marion uses to summon help when she confronts Saul Goodman. Clerestory windows are important in the television series. Clerestory windows are the sort of windows you see high in the naves of churches. They admit light, and you can look out over rooftops from them, and they mean healing or redemption. Here are the Clerestory windows at Cottonwood Mall, where the Cinnabon restaurant is located. We see them in every season of Better Call Saul. Nevertheless, most Clerestory windows had disappeared from Better Call Saul by the end of season 3 with Chuck's death. But they begin to make a reappearance at the start of season 5 with these special kind of Clerestory windows at the rail yards, high above where Gus and Nacho meet. This is the beginning of Nacho's redemption story and his final exit from Better Call Saul. Towards the end of season 6, we see a great many Clerestory windows. For example, here at the Sunport Car Rental Center, where Kim gets on a bus and to the airport, and on which bus she suffers her breakdown. And we have the Clerestory windows at the police station where Saul faces off against the prosecutors and Marie Schrader. This particular building had been used in Breaking Bad for the police evidence room where Walt and Jesse used their big magnet. I was surprised at the time that they did not use the Clerestory windows on the building, but what they seem to have done is to keep this building in reserve for the finale of Better Call Saul. In the last 2 seasons of Better Call Saul, there are fewer scenes inspired by Surrealist art, but paradoxically there are more Surrealist symbols present generally in props. For example, the use of cones, the perking cone that Jimmy uses, as well as the ice cream cone swarmed by ants. Keys are an important Surrealist symbol, the key to Howard's car, as are eyes. And we see Bill Oakley using eye drops here. Nevertheless, in the episode Waterworks, we have one final scene inspired by Surrealism, a sort of a final indulgence in Surrealist imagery. Gene breaks into the house of the man with cancer, and he conducts an exploration of the house. Everything he encounters on this exploration carries Surrealist weight. For example, the piano. Gene goes upstairs where there's a slideshow in progress featuring a variety of towers. The most important tower here is Mary Colter's Desert View Watchtower, which is built on the edge of the Grand Canyon from the year 1932. Mary Colter used as her inspiration the various watchtowers at Mesa Verde in southwest Colorado, so you have a Native American connection here. But you also have a Surrealist connection with the works of Giorgio de Chirico and his various towers, including the Red Tower from 1920. Gene also stands next to a row of hats, which call back not only to Walter White's Guerin hat, but to the ultimate inspiration for the hats, Max Ernst's The Hat Makes the Man, a collage from 1920. In general, Surrealist influences and Streamline Moderne influences are treated separately, but there are 2 occasions where both appear together in order to support the plot. For example, in episode Quite a Ride from season 4, we see the moment when Saul Goodman calls for a new dust filter for his Hoover Max Extract Pressure Pro Model 60. We see the scene through a hole in the wall, which is a Surrealist symbol, but we also see the glass block windows on the opposite wall. The composition of the image closely resembles that of the works of René Magritte, in particular The Great Century from 1954. The second example where the 2 traditions appear together is with the Days of Wonder mural, which is at Amherst and Central in Albuquerque. This is where Jimmy and Wendy wait before their performance in front of Cliff and Kim. This building has glass block windows, but it also has this mural with a variety of insects, which are a Surrealist symbol. And up at the top, we have a little locomotive, which recalls the various locomotives used in the works of Giorgio de Chirico. Now, glass block windows were first popularized at Chicago's 1933-34 Century of Progress exhibition, so they are a Chicago symbol. I had previously determined that they typically have 2 meanings. They can refer to specific events in Chicago's history, or they can refer to ensnarement or entrapment with a Chicago twist, in particular the Badger game, which is a form of blackmail. There were several examples of the use of glass block windows that didn't seem to fall into either of these two categories, and I wondered if there was a third meaning out there, but there just weren't enough examples of this third use, at least until the final season of Better Call Saul. Here are glass block windows in their first meaning. Jesse has just informed Andrea that her son Brock has been poisoned with ricin, and perhaps through tampered food or drink. We see glass block windows, and these refer to Chicago's 1982 Tylenol poisoning murders. Here are glass block windows in their second meaning. From the episode Better Call Saul, Jesse walks past Badger on the bus bench and tells him that he's sitting on the wrong bench. We see glass block windows, and they refer to the double entrapment scheme underway. The DEA is trying to catch Heisenberg, and Walt and Jesse are trying to trap the DEA. Here are possible examples from Breaking Bad of a third meaning. This is from the episode Salud, where Flynn drives away from his father's condo. In the background, we see the glass block windows at Barrymore's Antiques. Flynn had been caring for his father after Walt had been in a fist fight with Jesse. So in this particular scene, Walt is losing Flynn's protection. Two more examples from the episode End Times. At the beginning of the episode, a threatening phone call has been made to Hank. So DEA agents assemble, and we see glass block windows. So Hank is in the process of gaining protection here. And at the end of the episode, Walt has tried to bomb Gus but failed. Far away below on the street, we see two glass block windows. And so Walt, having once enjoyed Gus's protection, has now been completely stripped of any protection. So the theme seems to be the gain or loss of protection. From season 6 of Better Call Saul, Kim realizes that she is being followed. She confronts her stalkers next to the glass block windows on the south wall of the El Camino Motor Hotel on North 4th Street in Albuquerque. Unbeknownst to Kim, these men had been protecting her. So here, Kim is in the process of losing protection. Later, Lalo invades Kim and Jimmy's apartment and shoots Howard, and commands that Kim drive across town to shoot Gus. On the way, she stops at a traffic light, and we see the glass block windows at Langford Sports and Physical Therapy. And so Kim has completely lost any protection she had once enjoyed from anyone. So glass block windows seem to have these three meanings. The third meaning is not yet clearly associated with Chicago, but I don't think that will be hard. There's a rich history of the underworld in the city of Chicago, and the gain or loss of protection surely has been important there. So what are glass block windows? They appear to represent the boundary of the dark realm, where criminality happens. Crossing the boundary into the dark realm is easy, escape is hard. When you're at the boundary, it's hard to tell whether you are inside or outside the dark realm. Here are two examples. Here we have Walt waving his mercury fulminate around in Tuco's headquarters. Walt has crossed into the dark realm at this point. And below we have Jimmy preparing to take a nap in his nail salon office. Nacho is about to arrive with a proposition, so Jimmy is about to cross into the dark realm. And so what happens within the dark realm? The game of criminality, symbolized by tunnels. There are three more or less similar kinds of buildings featuring a lot of glass block windows or a lot of plate glass windows. And these buildings seem to represent traps. El Michoacano restaurant seems to be the Salamanca family's trap for Nacho. Wexler-McGill is Jimmy's trap for Kim. Kim had been reluctant to join Jimmy as a partner in a law practice. What she wanted was a separate law practice under the same roof, and that's what Wexler-McGill is. And the El Camino Motor Hotel dining room is Kim's trap for Jimmy. Jimmy had been reluctant to join Kim in her vendetta against Howard, but by headquartering her pro bono law practice here at the dining room, she is able to lull Jimmy into cooperation with her. So, tunnels. For the next part of my presentation, I'm presenting ideas that I've been working on along with my partner, Rachel Reisers. Here we have Kaylee and Mike playing with a marble run game, which features marbles running through tunnels. Mike is pictured as being at the center of the game. Mike is the moral center of the game of criminality. And we have a variety of tunnels, including a culvert with Nacho in it. The visual look recalls the 1960s television series The Time Tunnel, and so tunnels are also associated with the passage of time. So criminality takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, and it's fair to ask, is it worth it? That judgment is given to Nacho's father when Mike informs him that Nacho will not be returning, but that a form of justice might be possible. Nacho's father scoffs at this. His boy will not be coming back. There is no justice, and the game of criminality is worthless. But there is a winner of the game of criminality, and that is Saul Goodman. And for his victory, he gets a colorless existence in Omaha, Nebraska. Kim, too, is in a kind of purgatory, assembling her all-white jigsaw puzzles down in Florida. And for a time, it seems like nothing will disturb this limbo. The cabbie disturbs Jimmy's limbo, and what we get is regression, the most degraded form of Jimmy McGill that we've seen yet. When Jimmy calls Kim and sarcastically suggests that she should turn herself in, to his surprise, that's exactly what she does. She prepares an affidavit and hands it to the prosecutors, as well as to Cheryl, Howard's widow, and so exposes herself to a civil liability lawsuit whose effects might reverberate through her entire lifetime. Then Jimmy is arrested and sent back to Albuquerque. On the flight back, we get a view out the airliner window, and we see this landscape of southern Utah. In the distance, on the Arizona border, we see Navajo Mountain. Navajo Mountain has a place in the Indian Wars of the 19th century. When Kit Carson and his federal troops were ranging across the Navajo lands in the early 1860s, rounding up people for the long walk to Bosque Redondo in New Mexico, a few of the western clans of the Navajo tribe were able to escape and find refuge at Navajo Mountain. Jimmy, too, is struggling with federal agents, and he needs a refuge of his own. When Jimmy learns that Kim is exposed to the civil lawsuit, he realizes that it will not be adequate to get just the minimum sentence possible. In order to clear Kim, he has to do more. He has to tell the truth, to find refuge in the truth. But this is hard for Jimmy. Lying is a repetitive behavior that he's followed his entire life. An interesting surrealist movie that explores repetitive behaviors is Luis Buñuel's The Exterminating Angel from 1962. And the moral of this movie is that unexamined repetitive behaviors will lead you to imprisonment, but if you make conscious choices regarding your repetitive behaviors, you can find freedom. This is the message of psychotherapy too. And so Jimmy will have to examine his behaviors and tell the truth, as difficult as it may be. Jimmy has told the truth once before, however, when in his zeal to get the Sandpiper settlement, he created a rift between Irene and her friends. He was able to heal this rift, but only by telling the truth and by humiliating himself. And so in order to clear Kim, Jimmy is going to have to do something similar, but on a grander scale. But first, Jimmy needs Kim's attention and her attendance at his trial. He does this by calling attention to the fact that there may be hidden things about her that he might reveal at the trial. Other tricksters in history have done similar things. For example, in the Adventures of Tom Sawyer, Tom gets Becky Thatcher's attention by calling her attention to hidden things that might be important to her. Tom also tells Becky that to call him Tom, not to call him Thomas, his given name, because that's the name that they whip him by. So Tom has two names, a good name and a bad name. So Jimmy is convicted and sent to prison. On the prison bus, the prisoners recognize him and break out into a chant of "Better Call Saul." This refers back to an old movie, a musical of all things, The Music Man, starring Robert Preston from 1962. And the opening number, Rock Island, which is a very rhythmic number. In Rock Island, the fraternity of traveling salesmen sing about the exploits of the con man Harold Hill. And the analogy between Harold Hill and Saul Goodman is quite close. In The Music Man, Harold Hill allows himself to be arrested by the authorities in order to secure the love of Marion Peru. In a similar way, Saul Goodman confesses at his trial, all to win the love of Kim Wexler. And so Jimmy follows Kim's example, tells the truth, and redeems himself. It may seem to the world that Jimmy has lost everything, but he does have a few victories to show for his efforts. He has ended the game on his terms. He has won the love and respect of Kim Wexler, and he has lost the bad name of Saul Goodman and regained the good name of Jimmy McGill. Thank you.